And now, the world's most watched professional wrestling news program, the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the world's most watched professional wrestling news program. Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report. Back in the studio, Frank, Damian Nelson sitting next to the man, Frank Cosentino, and we've got all of the latest in the professional wrestling world, and the latest in the professional wrestling world this week, Frank, is WrestleMania 24. It's our annual WrestleMania 24 review show, and for those of you who have not checked it out already on pwrshow.com, we've got the most extensive WrestleMania week festivity coverage available in the world, including our exclusive wrap-ups of the events as they wrapped up from Orlando, Florida. But Frank, the card, WrestleMania 24, you had the chance to experience it back here in the headquarters of PWR in Milwaukee, and on television, on pay-per-view. Your thoughts overall of WrestleMania 24 and its presentation?
One of the better ones. From top to bottom, each match had something different, which is what we all look for. What I really enjoyed, obviously, was the HBK Ric Flair match. It was something that I don't think we'll ever see again, at least in my lifetime and in our lifetimes, depending on who's going to retire anytime soon. But that was just an incredible match, and we'll talk a little bit more about later. But from top to bottom, not bad, kept your interest, and we'll break down the matches. It's I'd say, one of the top 5 WrestleManias of all time.
Really?
I know there hasn't
That's a
been.
substantial
I know there's
statement.
only 24 of them, but I would say it's not the best ever, but it ranks as one of the top 5.
Being there live in the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, Florida was a unique experience, and it was my 6th WrestleMania I've attended live, and really the biggest stage of them all outdoors, and in an environment that WWE, as we said last week, completely transitioned. They took the Citrus Bowl and took it from its dumptum to an actually beautiful facility, as you saw from the DirecTV blimp, and as you saw also on television, and as we were able to capture in photographs of the event. But Frank, let's talk about it match by match. And we saw in the free view before WrestleMania 24, it was the Battle Royal, the WrestleMania 24 Battle Royal, to determine the participant in the ECW Championship matchup. That participant and the winner of the Battle Royal was none other than the Big Red Machine Kane, who none of us were willing to pick because that match had so many dynamics, the Battle Royal and then the championship match, which ended up being Chavo Guerrero versus Kane in a squash match where Kane wins, I think, in an official time of 8 seconds, the ECW
I didn't
Championship.
See that coming either. For a Battle Royal and a free view per se, not bad. Delivered. Kane winning it was a kind of a surprise in a way, but overall it was not bad.
I thought the match was, I think it was great the way they did it. Kane's entrance goes off, pyro and whatnot. Place goes dark. There's no, or place, is all red. There's no Kane. Place goes dark. There is Kane in the ring. Chokeslam 1, 2, 3. Chavo Guerrero drops the ECW Championship on WrestleMania.
Right.
What's significant about that, Frank, in my opinion, is that the ECW Championship gained some significance from being defended the way it was and lost the way it was at this WrestleMania. Usually, and we even said that there is not a significant ECW card on or match on the card, and we saw that changed. We saw people actually talking about the match and Kane winning the ECW Championship. From there, where do we go, though, with Kane as the ECW champion?
Who knows? It adds a little legitimacy to it based on Kane winning it, but it's all about who they're going to match him up with, who that first matchup is going to be. It's so key from that standpoint. And hopefully they match him up with the right wrestler, and they have a feud for a while. It adds a touch of legitimacy, but again, ECW is what it is. People just don't watch it or talk about it as much. Yeah,
and what was talked about is this past Tuesday on ECW on Sci-Fi, we saw Kane form somewhat of an alliance with CM Punk, a man who some speculate is on his way to WWE Raw. From the ECW roster. Remember what ECW was being built as at one point was the training proving ground, if you will, for the next step, whether it be Raw or SmackDown, and most likely Raw. Arguably, CM Punk has proven himself in ECW. And here's what's also interesting. CM Punk winning the Money in the Bank ladder match. And the internet world out there, all of you, 12-year-old reporters behind your computers reporting or stealing from one source that CM Punk was in the WWE doghouse. And clearly, when you're in the WWE doghouse, you win a championship opportunity for some point in the next year, which means you're getting a good push. So, very smart move by WWE with Kane winning that match against Chavo Guerrero. It's going to be a good chase for Chavo for the next couple of weeks at least.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that dampened it was because it was how short it was. You're basically, it's okay, here you go. And if you got up to grab a beverage and sat down, you missed it. I'm not a fan of that. If you're going to make it short, make it at least a couple minutes long and fine. But it basically just shows Chavo has nothing. And now that's the stuff that takes legitimacy away from Chavo. It's like you don't even give the guy a chance to even show anything. So that's the only downfall in that match.
Let's talk about it in the Money in the Bank ladder match. There were 7 participants and a surprise entrant, if you will, as a run-in. One of 2 run-ins for the entire night, by the way, not counting Charles Robinson. Matt, returning to WrestleMania, getting a tremendous pop from the 74,635 in the Citrus Bowl and coming in and interfering in that Money in the Bank ladder match, specifically against MVP. Now, Frank, that match, Money in the Bank, 7 participants. The winner gets a shot at a championship of their choosing in the next 12 months. We saw those participants come in. We saw some amazing spots, specifically Shelton Benjamin taking a spot similar to that in which Edge took from Jeff Hardy last year. However, the difference is no one came out to help Shelton Benjamin.
No. And once again, he delivers. Every year in the Money in the Bank match, one of the first things we talk about is Shelton Benjamin and how, like, this is his type of match. And then for the rest of the year, we don't hear about him much. And it's a shame because the guy's got so much talent. And for whatever reason, this push never comes. But in this match, he delivered once again, just a fantastic spot. The match itself was excellent. I was worried for that 1 second when Hardy came out. It was a shock. Nobody knew. And I thought, oh, God, don't have him win right now because that would have ruined the whole thing.
Yeah.
All the spots that were going on, that whole action, to have him win within seconds would have really ruined it. I'm glad they didn't give it to him. It adds more storylines as we saw on the past Raw, and it was good that he didn't win that match. My prediction was correct on that, which was
one of few.
I got one, but it was fantastic. Once again, the Money in the Bank delivers. It's a staple for WrestleMania every year, and what does CM Punk do now? And that's where maybe if he moves to Raw or SmackDown, people will remember it. But if they keep Money in the Bank on ECW, I don't know if that's going to work. I really don't know if that's going to work or not. We'll see.
Some said that they expected CM Punk to have cashed that in that night at WrestleMania, which clearly he did not do. However, as Frank was talking about just a moment ago, where is this CM Punk's transition over to WWE Raw with the Money in the Bank briefcase now? And that could be the case. I think the best redemption of that was when Edge did it at New Year's Revolution, I think 2006, when he came out and took the title off of John Cena, using his Money in the Bank opportunity. So this really gives a good dynamic to that is CM Punk and really propels him to the next level, I think, as far as championships go in World Wrestling Entertainment.
And as we were trying to predict who can win this thing, it was difficult, which is good. That's what we love to see. In Money in the Bank, it could be one of 8. And as Meathead and you mentioned, it's like, what? We have no idea on this one. This is literally a guess.
None of us able to pick in this one. However, you picked that no matter what, Chavo would win.
Yeah.
The ECW match, but in the Money in the Bank.
I was wrong.
In the Money in the Bank, you picked CM Punk, actually, which is, again,
got that
the one
correct.
that you picked. And I picked Morrison, and Meathead picked Ken Kennedy, Mr. Kennedy, who did not win the match either. So good call for you in that matchup. Great match overall. Very good match. And the Money in the Bank has always delivered and delivered again this year at WrestleMania 24. Frank, it was a match that was called a Belfast Brawl.
Yeah.
A Belfast Brawl. It was the wrestling god, JBL, going up against Finlay. Hornswoggle makes his return to WWE television. Hornswoggle at WrestleMania gets a tremendous pop, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, as Finlay comes out and is not quite able to meet the task that is JBL in the Belfast Brawl. Clothesline from hell, 1, 2, 3. JBL wins the match in bragging rights and clearly going into Raw the next night as a contender for the championship. That match, Frank, is something that we made our choices in. 2 of us picked JBL, 1 of us picked Finlay. Yeah. Nobody picked Hornswoggle. You were the unfortunate one who picked Finlay.
Yeah.
JBL needed this match, Frank. JBL needed this match. Finlay did not. What Finlay got out of this match was the return of Hornswoggle and a perpetuation of that particular storyline, not necessarily involving JBL. What JBL got out of this match was what you saw Monday night on Raw from Orlando, Florida as well. The opportunity to continue moving forward, to find a destination, and that destination is the WWE Championship that he has sought after from the retaining champion, Randy Orton. Your thoughts on the actual match, Frank?
The match was good. It was a bit surprising to me that it was the first match of the evening. I thought Money in the Bank would be kicking this thing off, and to have kind of a slower paced, although it wasn't that slow, which was good, slower paced match. It was all right. The Finlay move was kind of weird when he jumped through the ring ropes and then got smacked in the head. I thought for sure, okay, what makes this Belfast Brawl? What's brands that?
It was the green lighting.
Either that or with all that equipment and stuff that they threw into the ring, I thought someone was going to bleed. That didn't happen. So overall, it was okay. I didn't like the placement of it. But as you mentioned, that was JBL's, and after thinking about it, it would have made more sense to pick him. But JBL showed that he deserves some type of push at the top.
It was a good match, and as we said, JBL winning that matchup up against Finlay, the return of Hornswoggle, and JBL back in his place on top of the card on WWE Raw. Frank, it is then, from there, it is the brand supremacy match. It is Umaga going up against Batista. Umaga representing Raw, Batista representing SmackDown. This match really, again, we haven't seen SmackDown yet, but what significance will it have after WrestleMania was the question we asked in the WrestleMania preview show. And quite frankly, clearly no significance on Raw. We saw a nice little video package about Umaga, but really, I mean, what does it matter? I think the true definition of brand supremacy happened at the top of the card, but we'll talk more about why the match was at the top of the card as we get to that point. But that match, Batista ends it with the Batista bomb, not the most better executed, not the one of the better executed Batista bombs, but certainly effective enough to win the match. Now, there are those who speculate Batista may have been injured, which is what Meathead speculated on the wrap-up of WrestleMania 24. There are those who say he just wanted to get out of Dodge because of botching that spot at WrestleMania. But ultimately, the match not defined by one spot, because you think of Trish Stratus, Mickie James at WrestleMania 22, great match, botched finish, edited together to make it look nicely when the DVD finally came out. At the end of the day, folks, it won't matter that Batista didn't quite perfectly execute the Batista bomb. What will matter is that Batista won SmackDown, the brand, the more supreme brand, at least in this match. But I like what they did, having Vicky Guerrero and Teddy Long, I'm sorry, not Vicky at that point, actually, just Teddy Long and William Regal come out to be represented in the match, made a lot of sense. And the match was good. The match was better than I expected it to be, and Batista, of course, going over in that match. Now, that is a person, Frank, that I chose, and that Meathead chose, and that you said would be a disqualification.
I thought it would be a DQ, as they've been, for some reason, having a DQ at just about every pay-per-view up to this point, which I was happy that it didn't happen. The one thing that I thought that was missing, and you saw Umaga, trying to... Umaga, try and leap himself up, because there was no way that Batista was going to get him up using his own strength. So it looked kind of odd for that to happen. What I was hoping in this was adding Teddy Long and Raw's GM. That's
William Regal. He's a man.
Why couldn't I not think of it? Having Regal them together at the end of this thing, where they both come out, and they could have added something like someone wins $50,000. I don't know. Something to really add brand versus brand instead of just two wrestlers where, frankly, everyone just forgot about anyway once that thing was done. Yeah, he wins for Raw. So what? Means nothing.
Right.
They cross-promote anyway throughout the whole thing. So I was hoping for a Regal, Teddy Long kind of something added to that, saying, my brand won, just to
And we might see that on SmackDown. We not seen the show, didn't
Yeah, I
actually look
haven't
at the results either before the taping, which comes a day after that. But again, our speculation was it won't matter at the end of the day, and I
No.
think that's going to be the case. And kudos to WWE if they do manage to do something significant with it, but the doubt is there that they will not be able to. We talked about the ECW matchup, but we did not talk about, now we are really at the level of the card where there's a lot of gimmicks, a lot of special guests, and lots of different types of matches. And one of those very different types of matches was the Big Show going up against Pretty Boy Floyd Mayweather in a match where anything went. There must be a winner, and anything goes, as Lillian Garcia told us. Now, Big Show coming out to a tremendous ovation. Floyd Money Mayweather coming out to a tremendous ovation. He had JBL style money, where the money that was blowing through the confetti cannons had his picture on it. It was Mayweather money, which was a good score if you were a fan in the Citrus Bowl. But that match, Frank, we went into it, and again, we had no idea.
No.
We really did not even choose a winner in that match because there was not enough information available at the time. And really, without knowing if it would be a boxing expedition, a brawl for all kind of match, or wrestling kind of match, we had no idea. Not able to pick a winner. What we were able to do is know that this match would be different, and its execution live was different. It was a match where you could hear the 74,000 plus fans realize shortly into the match that, hey, this is actually pretty good. And I think that was the theme of that matchup. It wasn't a wrestling classic.
No.
It certainly was not even a wrestling match, but it held the entertainment of all the fans in attendance. And I think the expectation level, the bar had been set so low that it made a lot of sense, and it was very satisfactory to allow the wrestling fans in attendance that, hey, Floyd has tried. Floyd is not just out here being a pretty boy. Floyd is in this thing, and the Big Show is in this thing, and we're seeing some dynamic things occur in this matchup, such as the outside interference, such as Floyd using a foreign object, if you will, the brass knuckles, to eventually win the match. But hell, that was a great match being there live. And when I say great match, because I could already hear the feedback, when I say great match, I mean from an entertainment standpoint. It was not a wrestling contest. But from an entertainment standpoint, Floyd delivered, Big Show delivered, in essence, WWE delivered. And folks, let's remember why Floyd Mayweather was there. For the Associated Press coverage, for the CNN coverage, for the MSNBC coverage, for the Fox Sports coverage, for the ESPN coverage. And little did they know they get coverage for another little incident at the end of the show, but be that as it may, Floyd Mayweather paid off for WWE in delivery of the entertainment of the match, and actually delivery of the publicity from being involved. Floyd really put himself, he threw himself into this role at WrestleMania 24.
That's what we were looking for as fans. What would Floyd Mayweather do in this thing? We knew Big Show was at some point going to do something to Floyd, but what can Floyd do? And we were looking for what kind of bumps he was going to take, because that's going to prove that, all right, add the entertainment value to this wrestling match and make it work. And he did. Now, if you read all the dialogue from about a month ago where Mayweather was on the Titantron, they still call it the Titantron, and he said, I'm going to break his jaw. I'm going to break his jaw. He said it like 15 times. So during that match, I'm waiting for him to break his jaw, because that was probably what they were speaking of, how they're going to do this thing, or at some point that was going to happen. Give Mayweather credit. He took the bumps. Give Big Show credit for making them look as good as possible. The guy was nearly 300 pounds, lighter than he was. It worked. It was entertaining. You hit the nail on the head where we weren't looking for a wrestling match. It wasn't going to happen. But it worked from an entertainment standpoint, and it worked for Big Show and Mayweather. Mayweather came off perfectly in this thing. And I could see him in the future doing something, in regards to WWE. It added everything that they wanted to, and the match was just perfect.
Again, perfect in its execution. WWE, many say that many people worked with both Mayweather and Big Show in the execution of that matchup. Doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we got an entertaining match. I don't care who trained who or who spent a lot of time with whoever, but we got an entertaining wrestling expedition in that matchup. So congrats to Floyd for showing up and stepping up, if you will, and congrats to the Big Show as well, because Big Show, some say, was made into as big a star as he's ever been by his participation and involvement in that matchup. And I would say, given the reception that he received on Raw Monday night in the Amway Arena in Orlando, Florida, that is indeed true. Another match that may not have delivered so well, Bunny Mania. Snoop. Was it Snoop for you? Snoop, not really? Not on the schnizzle, fnizzle,
the omen there, the lights go out, and you kind of knew that this wasn't just meant to be. And at first you're like, whoa, the lights went out. And what's Snoop going to do here? Now, what's going on? We thought something was going to happen. It was just a horrible, horrible match, which doesn't make my, best WrestleMania ever. Of course, you have something like this where it's eye candy. Just bad from beginning to end. Didn't work. And I think they'll work on this in the future, depending on how they use the women wrestlers from that standpoint. Just brutal.
Not entertained at all.
No.
Not even Snoop coming down in a little pimp mobile.
It took forever for him to get
Mick Foley with Sacco with the bling.
It took forever for him to get to the ring.
Snoop giving tribute to the previous match, which was Ric Flair giving a couple of woos.
Yeah. I don't know. I just didn't like the placement of the match. I didn't like the match at all. I think it was just horrible.
The fans in the Citrus Bowl ate it up. And they totally ate up Snoop's involvement. And Snoop's a pop sensation, folks, in case you don't know it. Yes, when the lights went out in the city, as Journey would say, yeah, there was an issue with the spider, the lighting truss at the time, and probably it's the best match where it could have happened in. Right. But they had reset the show just before that with a huge pyrotechnics display, so one would imagine that had a little something to do with it. But be that as it may, that's not the story, because WWE and their production genius, which is what they have, will of course figure out a way to make that not so intrusive on the Blu-ray DVD and the regular DVD version that will be released sooner than you expected on WWE Home Video. But Frank, we talked about it, we alluded to it, the match, historic in its nature. It is Ric Flair versus HBK Shawn Michaels. If Ric Flair does not win, if he is defeated, his career is over. We all knew going into it that it would not be Ric Flair's another career-threatening match, but that it would be the final career-threatening match. And the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels would certainly be the man who would superkick the career of Ric Flair out the window. And that indeed happened. But Frank, that match itself, we talked about it on the preview show. That match would be something special, not just because of the circumstances surrounding it, but that Ric Flair would give his all. That Shawn Michaels would give his all. And we really saw not only the emotion from the 74,000 plus fans, not only the emotion we heard from JR and the King, not only the emotion we saw in the ring from HBK and Ric Flair, but the overall atmosphere. You knew that you were a part of something very special during that match. And if, for many of us, the flashbacks of the many of Ric Flair's careers going through our heads in that match made it that much more substantial. And getting that final super kick, I'm sorry, I love you, from Shawn Michaels to Ric Flair. Getting that final super kick, Flair laying down, the 1, the 2, the 3, the immediate rub from Shawn Michaels giving Flair words of encouragement into his ear after the match. That moment in time will forever be etched in professional wrestling history, and it happened at WrestleMania 24. Live, Frank, it was a substantial moment. And it was a moment of glowing respect, a moment where they did it perfectly. Shawn Michaels, I think, got out of the ring and got back to the back faster than he did at Survivor Series 97,
yes,
which was good. He needed to do that. He needed to go and just let Rick have his time. And let's not, folks, discount the emotional nature of Shawn Michaels' participation in this match. To be the man, if you will, that ends the career in the public eye of Ric Flair was a difficult thing for him to be. And what we don't know, and what we will never know, is what the conversations were before the match. What the conversations were when Flair did choose Shawn Michaels to be that man who ends his career. There's so much understory to this matchup and so much significance in this matchup. Frank, the transition onto pay-per-view of Ric Flair's final match.
There's only two words that I can use: historic and emotional. What you saw there was something that, to me, the most emotional WrestleMania match ever. Now I put that up with when Chris Benoit won his title, because it was one of those finally he moves up. And that was a lot of
WrestleMania
emotion
20.
there. This one had the end of a career. This spanned 35 years of a guy that didn't have to win all the time, put wrestlers over, had the best charisma, debatably against Hulk Hogan, that anyone could have matched, but he had the wrestling that went with it early on in his career. Just to see the emotion at that moment with HBK and the super kick, and Ric Flair just kind of just standing up. He knew this was it.
Yeah.
He had his hands up, and then, I have no problem admitting it. It was Niagara Falls at that point. And I've been watching, being the elder statesman per se. I remember the matches with Ric Flair from about 25, 26 years ago, and just how he, in the NWA and doing all that, all that wrapped into that final moment. To have his family there, it was absolutely put together perfectly. Give credit, as you mentioned, to Shawn Michaels, who took a crazy bump. Where the table didn't break the way I don't think it should.
His
you saw Charles
ribs hit
Robinson
the table as toughly as McMahon's spine hit the table
Yes.
at St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1999.
Charles Robinson runs right down there,
And that wouldn't be all the running he did.
and that was hilarious when he did it later on.
We were sitting stateside pretty much, and we needed another ref, obviously, when he would do that later.
Right.
And just to see this blonde streak flying down that epic ramp was
I was
comedic.
laughing. That was the loudest laugh I had all night, just watching him run. But the HBK match with the Ric Flair, it'll go down in history as one of the most emotional matches of WrestleMania of all time, pay-per-view. Unbelievable.
And as I said, being there live, and obviously the weekend's festivities, we'll talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame in a few minutes. We'll talk a little bit about the Raw tribute to Ric Flair in a few minutes as well. But you knew there was something special in that match. And I think majority of the fans in attendance at the Citrus Bowl, no matter how old, young, or far away from the wrestling world they have been in recent times, Ric Flair has as significant a connection with professional wrestling as Hulk Hogan. And some would compare the two, but as Frank said, Ric Flair is arguably the greatest professional wrestler of all time. And to really appreciate Ric Flair as a wrestling fan, you owe it to yourselves to pick up two items. First is the Ric Flair Ultimate Collection or Complete Collection, whatever it is, released a few years ago by WWE. Next is Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen. If you have not had if you're wondering what all the hype is all about, check out those two DVDs, and really you'll see that Ric Flair is an icon not only in the business, but in the entertainment industry. And the things that he did, the sacrifices he made, and the contributions he made to the business are unparalleled. And, a lot of people like to read a lot further into some of the things, such as why was Arn Anderson not represented in Flair's speech on the Hall of Fame airing? Well, he certainly gave a very long thank you to Arn. About an hour and 15 minutes, I believe it was. But, the match was significant. And to appreciate that significance, I recommend those two items. And, you think back to Starrcade 83, if you're an older fan, where he won his second title against Harley Race. You think back to Starrcade 95, when Flair won against Macho Man Randy Savage, when Pillman interfered, and the Horsemen were all over the place, and Flair was a bloody mess. That is a great new Ric Flair moment. So to have... And right there, that's a 12-year span. But to have so many great moments spun over so many years, there are the dark days, too. Paul Roman and the Four Horsemen, the Black Scorpion, Ric Flair really detaching himself from the business psychologically for a number of years. But, whatever. It's like Behind the Music or A True Hollywood Story. We really have seen the gambit of a professional wrestling career, whether you agree with it or not, in that is Ric Flair, and a man who truly was always an extension of himself,
Right.
An extension of the character. Many say Stone Cold was that first person. Well, no, not really. Ric Flair was always an extension of himself. And all the things he talked about, the jet flying, limousine riding, kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun, it was all true. And as he talks about it in the Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen DVD, whether he could afford it or not, he still did it and lived that life. And for that, Ric Flair deserves all of the respect and all the accolades that he got this past weekend, I think, from WWE and the fans. Now, I think there were several things missing that logistically just were impossible to do, and we'll talk about those when we'll talk about the Hall of Fame too. But that match, certainly one that will forever go down in history, and we all picked HBK in that match because it was so obvious and clear. There were two main events, Frank, the first of which was not at the top of the card, as everyone speculated, and every time this happens, everyone's like, oh, well, the Raw match will be on top of the card, the Raw match will be on top of the card. Well, it wasn't again. It was, though, 3 men, 1 title. Randy Orton comes in to defend his WWE Championship against John Cena and Triple H. John Cena coming down to the ring with a band playing his song, which was interesting. Very interesting. And, you know, the boos for Cena were prevalent. The cheers for Cena were prevalent. And I will say this again, as I've said many a time, if you're reacting to John Cena is over. Listen to the fans when insert jobber from insert city here gets into the ring. That is a person who's not over, a person who the fans don't care about. John Cena, whether you boo him or cheer him, he is over. So if you don't like him so much, if you think he can't wrestle, blah, 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 then shut up. I mean, to be flat honest with you, just shut up. That will send a message. But the passion that's there, Frank, for yay or nay Cena is substantial. And I think this is one instance where the cheers outweigh the boos. And I think a lot of the fans that boo get a lot more frustrated that there are fans cheering, that they try to boo more, and are upset and frustrated that they get drowned out by those fans that are cheering. But, you know, don't hate. Just sometimes you got to go along with it. What John Cena deserves, and what Ric Flair said that may not have aired, is John Cena, and as Triple H has said as well, is one of the hardest working men in the business. Yep. And he gives his all for you, the fan. Now, whether you think he can wrestle or not, whether you think he deserves his spot or not, that's insignificant. But I will say this. John Cena, a man who came up through OVW, came up through Indies, served his time, went up through the card on SmackDown and then over to Raw, really has evolved as a character, and I think has paid his dues as best someone in this day and age of professional wrestling can pay their dues. So he can't wrestle, blah, blah. Sometimes a lot of that stuff is passionately unfounded. But everyone is, of course, entitled to their opinion. My opinion is that John Cena, whether you like him or not, does deserve respect, and saying he can't wrestle is not fair to him, and certainly not fair to Flair.
Right. Got it.
But be that as it may, John Cena, one of the 3 participants in that match. Frank, the favorites going into that match were one of 2 people, Triple H or John Cena. What we saw after a head kick was the champ, Randy Orton, getting made at WrestleMania, walking out of WrestleMania, still the WWE champion when everyone thought it would be Triple H. And again, back to the hate issue in professional wrestling, a lot of people hate Triple H because he's always the champion, because he's always with the belt. Triple H has had a brief, half-a-night title reign in the last, I believe, year or 2. He has not been champion for a significant period of time, in a long time. So give it up, leave it alone. It is not factual. Yes, he's
in the main event.
Yes, but Triple H got one of the most substantial pops at Raw and at the WWE Hall of Fame induction ceremony and at WrestleMania. Fans like Triple H. Triple H is in a spot where, yes, he is seeing the boss's daughter. Jealousy is what is driving a lot of people to talk about how that's a bad thing and how he's getting everything he wants and how he has so much influence. Well, quite frankly, a lot of you like the product he has influence over. So if you don't, then try something else. If you do, come to grips with that fact and stop bashing Triple H and John Cena. Randy Orton, though, the man who's benefiting from all this, Frank. Randy Orton, the man who walks out with the WWE Championship. Randy Orton, the man who is made at WrestleMania 24. And as he goes through the list on Raw this past Monday night, talks about all the people he has beat, all the people he has achieved victory over, you can't help but look at another Triple H. Think of the Triple H in 1999, 2000, when Triple H was being made. He went into every pay-per-view. In that match, he had to lose. There was no way he would win. What he did, and when it hit for me, was when he wrestled in the hardcore match at Royal Rumble 99 or 2000, I think it was 2000, against Mick Foley, Madison Square Garden, and won that match, that was when Triple H got made for me. But that was one of many in a series of matches where Triple H just kept winning. It's like, wow, this guy's pretty good. Now, Triple H, of course, a substantially better wrestler than John Cena. There's no doubt. Is Triple H a substantially better wrestler than Randy Orton? Given pure experience, yes. But can Randy Orton be there one day? You're damn right he can. But Frank, Randy Orton wins that match. It was a kick to the head, 1, 2, 3. Orton wins. He didn't steal it. He was an opportunist, much like Edge was.
Right.
Orton walks out WWE champion. Your thoughts on that match?
This was a risk on WWE's part on what they were going to do with Randy Orton. You could tell that they maybe thought this over and said, do we give this guy a clean victory up against Triple H and John Cena? It's not anything goofy. It's not anything. He wins this thing. You hit it on the head again. He was made that night. That's why I couldn't. I was surprised, but then pleasantly surprised that he won, because we know the backstage stuff that has happened to Randy Orton. We knew that. Does WWE want him to be the face of the organization from a championship standpoint? They're giving him that chance now. He's going to have that belt for a while, at least, in my opinion, for a good 3 to possibly 6 more months, while Cena and maybe Triple H and maybe JBL, they keep running at him. It's going to work. At least in my opinion, it's going to now, based on him winning this thing clean and taking advantage. It was an opportunity. They had to make it. The heel doesn't always just win clean like that, but it worked. Give credit to WWE for taking that risk in this thing. It would have been so much easier just to hand it to Triple H like I thought they were going to do, but it didn't happen, and the match worked. Again, it was excellent from beginning to end.
Solidly delivered match. And what was interesting was the live crowd was so shocked that Orton won that there were many more people cheering or not saying a word, but where were the Cena haters? If they hate Cena so much, shouldn't they have been so happy that Orton had won? But the fans overall, I think it was a lot of shock in the Citrus Bowl that Orton won that match, and Orton needed that match, folks, which is why I picked him and why Meathead picked him. However, you chose to
went with
pick
Triple
Trips.
H because I thought WWE would take the safe route because of Orton's backstage antics and
long time ago.
But it was a while ago, but it's
and
still.
since he's been back,
I
just
guess,
been on a clear ascent in WWE.
And I credit WWE for surprising me that evening and making it done. It was a great match.
As we said, that match not the main event. We talked earlier about why SmackDown was indeed truly the superior brand when it came to WrestleMania 24. The top of the card was The Undertaker and Edge. Edge in the main event at WrestleMania. Edge, the little star who could, by the way, because when you really start looking at Edge's career, and he tells you occasionally, the things he's done, such as pulling out the fact that he was undefeated at WrestleMania. And yes, he lost Money in the Bank, but so did 8 other people. It's like saying you lost a match if you lost the Royal Rumble. Come on, let's get with it, folks. And then, how many times has he been tag champ? And all those things which are very important. Well, Edge, in the main event at WrestleMania, Edge could have won this match, folks, until the match was on top of the card. Because what you have to do, as you say, Frank, is send the fans home happy. Edge winning that match would have made a lot of sense. It would have made Edge. Because taking that 16-0 and flushing it down the toilet, making it 15-1 at WrestleMania would have been the perfect move for WWE and for Edge. But with Orton winning, fans would not have gone home happy, which is why that match couldn't be on top of the card. What needed to be on top of the card was Edge Undertaker. Undertaker wins a championship. It's a WrestleMania rewind almost to last year, but it was a good match. I mean, really, Edge deserving a lot more credit than he gets for the spot that he's in. Undertaker, I mean, I guess in hindsight, yeah, he had to win. But at one point, when does he become the New England Patriots and lose that big game?
For a second, and it's funny you brought that up, maybe the WWE is going that route. Oh, yeah, don't worry, the Patriots will win this thing, or in this case, it'll be the Undertaker winning this thing. For a second there, and I'm watching this with a group of people, like, are you kidding me? They're going to give it to Edge here. But then, again, as you alluded to, that you're never going to end a WrestleMania with the heel winning. It's never going to happen. But credit these two guys. Once again, Edge just proving that he is one of the top superstars in all of professional wrestling right now. Just everything going for him. This match is second to last. Edge wins this thing, and the streak is over. And I'm now hoping that it does at a WrestleMania, or obviously it would have to, where could happen next year, where Undertaker finally loses.
I think at this point, because the Undertaker, he's got to be nearing the end of his career. Does he have 4 years on it? Can he go 20-0? I don't know. To me, it's getting old, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's old, reliable. Undertaker's going to win his match at WrestleMania. But here's the opportunity they have: is it can be SummerSlam, it could be a random edition of SmackDown, it can be the Royal Rumble, it can be any other event than WrestleMania. And Undertaker can go out even before next year's WrestleMania in Houston, Texas, at 16-0. He doesn't need to wrestle every WrestleMania to maintain that streak. The streak is there. He owns it. He can get out before it or go out on it. Go out 17-0, go out 18-0, go out 19-0, 20-0. But at some point, I think you got to put some realism behind it, much like Goldberg's streak of, 183 wins or whatever it was. And you make that one significant. I don't remember who beat Goldberg first. Shows you how significant it made it. But they've got several different opportunities to take this with. But again, Edge could have won that match. Edge would have benefited from winning that match. But
oh my God,
Edge, a man who is a great wrestler, and I think getting his comeuppance, if you will, because and this was a point me and Ed made several times during WrestleMania. Edge was in the main event. The main event at WrestleMania. Absolutely. Top of the card, main event, and period. No matter what happened.
And deserved it.
Even WrestleMania 11, when it was Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow, they were in the main event at WrestleMania. Overall, the show, phenomenal. I've not had the opportunity to, and we'll soon, we did an interview with AJ Styles, and post-interview, we talked about how we use the word phenomenal so much, and he recommended we put a nickel jar on the desk, so we just got to get the nickel jar. Every time we say phenomenal, put a nickel in it for next time we see AJ. But and you can check that out at pwrshow.com if you haven't done so already, along with our interview with Christopher Daniels, which is available at pwrshow.com as well. But be that as it may, the card, WrestleMania 24, great show. WWE really pulling out all the stops. I mean, I've been to Chicago, Boston, Los Angeles, Orlando. I almost said El Dorado. Orlando, New York. Been to all those places for WrestleManias and events surrounding WrestleMania. And Orlando is all about the rat that is Mickey Mouse and all about Universal Studios and the tourists and whatnot. WrestleMania really impeding upon the tourist business in Orlando. And remember, it was something that Orlando sought and wanted to have. Citrus Bowl is an unused facility generally. And WWE really spent an amazing amount of money to make that place look as good as it did. You look at the spider alone, the trust that they put in the middle of the place was simply amazing, and obviously a multi-million-dollar venture. Granted, yes, there was the pyrotechnics incident at the end of the show, which I did bear witness to, and having the experience I do with pyrotechnics, which is a little secret many of you may not know. But much of the stuff they use is cold burning, which means if it touches you in fallout phase, it ain't going to hurt you. This was certainly not fallout phase. Cable snapped, and clearly there was a whole section that was lit up at the time. So, there are many stories out there, and this has been sensationalized, I think, to some degree, as they are all minor injuries, if you will. But this will indeed cost somebody a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. And thankfully there wasn't anything worse where, the stands start
and there was
catch on fire or anything, but you never
there was
know.
one quote, and I'm not sure if this is the week to do it, but I'm getting real close to doing it. There was one quote on a website that said, a quote from a fan that said, it reminded me of the Rhode Island tragedy. Well, that's asinine. No. And I'm not defending WWE here. I'm defending the incident because in Rhode Island you had multiple people perish and die in a fire based off of a pyrotechnics incident. This was a mere pyrotechnics mishap where several people were injured. It's a big deal, yes, but nobody died. And to compare it to that and to publish that, and that's the thing about reporting out there. And we consider ourselves, much like Bobby Heenan, broadcast journalists, and we choose what to cover. There's a lot of stuff that comes across this desk and through our newsroom, if you will, that we don't report on because it's not worthy of reporting on, because it's too personal or it's just something that is not for public consumption. And the internet reporters, the web reporters out there have an obligation to their audience to present things in a way that does not sensationalize news, present things in a way that does not lie or intrude upon people's trust just to get people over to click on ads or to get impressions on your site. There's a long way to go. We have, as professional wrestling journalists, and we will continue that long fight and continue to pioneer the cause that is professional wrestling news in this business each week as we have done. But soapbox there, but the event, WrestleMania 24, solid event. As far as the ones I've been to, I think Ford Field, I think WrestleMania 23 was a great show. I think it, again, had that cultural significance that was WrestleMania. You had Donald Trump involved this year, Floyd Mayweather. The city painted WrestleMania, and WWE really spending a lot of dollars on it. But WrestleMania is as big as the Super Bowl. As far as its significance goes, and its unknown significance. Does WrestleMania generate the revenues as the Super Bowl? No. Does it do as popular business as far as viewership and whatnot as the Super Bowl? No. But a lot of brands and businesses and people are attaching themselves to the brand that is WrestleMania, and it supersedes even WWE because it is WrestleMania, and everybody knows WrestleMania. And I think you're going to see a lot more of these opportunities coming down the road. Houston's Reliant Stadium next year. Rumor has it that Orlando is wanting WrestleMania back. It's a big deal. And it paints the town, does WrestleMania. And another lie that was out there is that WWE had put a hotel on lockdown, the Marriott, if you will, and nobody could get in or out unless you were a WWE fan. Well, I stayed there one night and was able to come and go as freely as I wanted, even without showing a room key. So again, there's a lot of responsibility a lot of people have out there that they don't necessarily live up to. But be that as it may, great event. Translated well onto television from what I understand.
For the most part.
I've not had a chance to see it. But there were several other events that weekend as we talk about WrestleMania being a big event. There was a Hall of Fame induction ceremony on Saturday night. There was live Raw on Monday night. We had the opportunity to see Rev Theory perform live just before WrestleMania, which was an awesome experience. And also, the little secret that a lot of people, not enough fans, knew about or took advantage of was TNA Impact was live, ladies and gentlemen. TNA Impact was live for the first time ever from the Impact Zone, Orlando, Florida, Universal Studios. Sting making his triumphant return to TNA Wrestling. Phenomenal event. Some say it didn't translate as well onto TV as it may have been live, but there is a natural inclination that people have to slam TNA and to look negatively at TNA because all TNA is trying to do is be WWE. Well, TNA is not trying to be WWE. TNA is delivering a tremendously better professional wrestling product than WWE is, but TNA is still in its growing phase. And the live Impact was another step in their growth. I think it was a phenomenal show, and we had the opportunity, did meet Ed and I, to be there for each of the three, the live Impact rather, and the two Impact tapings following. And there is a distinct difference in TNA Wrestling and WWE World Wrestling Entertainment. And all these rumors about TNA people intruding upon WWE events or whatever. What the hell's wrong with TNA representatives going to a WWE signing, a public event, and saying, hey, just so you know, right up the road is a TNA Impact taping. Come on over and check it out. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and it shouldn't be sensationalized that they did that. But TNA, we've been critics of TNA in the past. We'll continue to be critics of TNA, continue to be critics of WWE. But from this reporter's perspective, the most fan-friendly events that occurred over WrestleMania week were hosted by Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, and the most solid professional wrestling product over the course of that week was presented by both TNA and Ring of Honor. We unfortunately did not get the opportunity to go to the Ring of Honor show due to a ticket issue that was not able to be resolved between us and Ring of Honor until Saturday night, where we had already been committed to the Hall of Fame ceremony. That is a mistake, and we would have liked to have gone to that show, and we commit to being at the next Chicago show when they come to the area of our tapings here. In an effort not to ramble, though, TNA, great product, solid product. Folks, if you haven't given TNA a chance lately, give TNA a chance now. And check out our interview with AJ Styles, where I ask some very pointed questions. Check out our interview with Christopher Daniels, where I ask some very pointed questions. It's not about, sensationalizing what's going on out there. We simply ask the questions that really needed to be answered. And I think you'll learn a lot about TNA and its drive and its desire and how they indeed plan to cross that line.
They have a lot of work to do. They're getting there. The talent is there. The product is there. The organization is there. Without being a dead horse for the 5,000th time, but I'll add one more. The ring has got to go. But and they don't need it. the talent is there to overcome. We're going to be a little bit different here. They're getting there. They're close. Depending on what they want to do. Do they want to be the competing to WWE, or they just want to be their sole entity? Unfortunately, it's wrestling. There's not, 10 or 15 different organizations that have a cable program out there. It's just
in prime time.
It's just 2 or 3. That's about it.
And remember, like I've said before, if WWE succeeds, they only do it because TNA has succeeded. They only do it because Ring of Honor has succeeded. They only do it because the independent promotions have succeeded. WWE has never been and will never be as popular as it was when there was the Monday Night Wrestling Wars, period. It just will not happen because you need that competition. Competition makes everybody better. Competition is something that makes the fans get a better product. Because remember what we were seeing on Monday Night Wrestling before the Monday Night Wrestling Wars, crap matches. We were seeing primetime wrestling, which I'm a huge fan of, by the way. That included tape matches from all over the country with jobbers pretty much and Hulk Hogan on occasion. Now we get high-quality professional wrestling each week. Some say the bar has been raised too high, but TNA does not need to go head-to-head with Raw. That they're not at that point yet as far as, their brand recognition. It's not a matter of the product, because remember, when Nitro was winning, Raw was better for the most part. When Raw was winning, Nitro was better for the most part. So they've got, as Frank said, a lot of work to do, but having been in this business for over 10 years and being so closely involved over the last 10 years, there's something special in TNA. And WWE needs to be very aware of what that is special in TNA. And if they're not aware, and if they're being elitist and they're arrogant about it, and I saw a lot of arrogance from WWE this weekend, by the way, a ton of arrogance, unfounded arrogance. But if they're being arrogant about it, TNA is going to come up and bite them in the butt. And they won't have realized it, much like Nitro did in 1996.
Absolutely. Well, and they'll get there eventually. TNA taking the steps that they need to get to the level that they can promise advertisers and they can make more money. Bottom line, that's all they're looking for.
The Hall of Fame induction ceremony, Frank, as we just about run out of time here. We're almost going an hour, we're in overtime. It's going to be a challenge for the editors.
It's OT.
The Hall of Fame induction ceremony, we'll summarize it by saying The Rock returned. And we'll also say there is, depending on where you read, a lot of heat on The Rock for his induction speech. Well, the fans love The Rock loved the fans. I think that's all that matters to us. Was it a good presentation? Did it work? Did his jabs at Cena make us laugh? Did his jabs at Jericho make us laugh? Yeah. Did they hurt Cena or Jericho's feelings? I can guarantee you they didn't. Was it something that may not have followed the traditional way of ribbing? No, but The Rock is back. The Rock's a movie star. I don't think he endeared himself to anybody at this Hall of Fame induction ceremony because it was more about him than about those he was inducting, which I feared, and it actually happened. It is what it is. And I would say those in the business have some ill feelings towards The Rock, not because he left, but because of his behavior since departure. There's a distinct difference there, folks. Rock didn't sell out. Rock took advantage of a solid business opportunity,
Absolutely.
which any of us would do. But it's his behavior after. Some say he arrived at the show late, left immediately following his extended speech. That's not the way to play it. But what else is going on there? Getting back to a movie set, whatnot. John Cena did Larry King from New Orleans because he was taping a movie. Does that make him, not someone who's not committed to the business?
Yeah.
You just got to look at it in context, folks. But Frank, your thoughts on the presentation by The Rock and then the acceptance by Ric Flair of his Hall of Fame induction?
I thought The Rock's was funny at times. He's an arrogant guy. There's no question about that. But he's like you said, the fans, the wrestlers maybe have heat on him. Would you rather work 300 nights a week falling on your back half the time, or work maybe 6 months getting paid 10 times as much as he was making?
As he said, I usually get $15 million to cry.
Yeah, and it works. If you saw that latest Disney movie he was in, made a lot of money. He made a lot of money. It's what he is. It's what he's done. So I thought that was good. Ric Flair, obviously they cut it down for TV. It was, again, very emotional. You could tell at times he was kind of off script. Kept talking about HBK a few times. You better bring it. You better bring it. And you knew that his thought process was off at that point because emotionally it was just you can't describe. And obviously if you're watching this, you know how old you are. We don't have that many people that are in their 50s watching our show, but if you have parents that or grandparents that are about to retire from work. They've been there for a long time. You see the same people. You basically do the same thing. You gain friendships that will never go, hopefully will never go away. That's an emotional time. Your time is done. And I thought it went well. I thought his speech was good. And it wasn't that bad. It wasn't a great Hall of Fame ceremony thing, but it was all right.
WWE has commercialized the Hall of Fame to an extent where I will no longer participate. Let me just say that. But be that as it may, the Raw on Monday night where Flair was sent off, his farewell address. And there's exclusive footage of more of that address at pwrshow.com right now, such as The Undertaker's tribute and Vince McMahon's tribute to Ric Flair. Again, exclusive on pwrshow.com right now, so check it out. We share that with you because it was such a substantial moment. And to be in that arena and see Flair's farewell and to see the Horsemen represented, James Dillon, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Here's where there were some logistical challenges where the people who really needed to pay their tributes were not permitted to. Sting should have been there. WWE should have welcomed him there. TNA should have embraced that and allowed him to go there. And maybe not Sting, maybe Steve Borden should have been there, by the way. Booker T, I would say Kurt Angle to an extent, but Terry Taylor, Jeff Jarrett, rather. There's so many people who seemingly should have been there who, for whatever reason, were not. Ric Flair had such an illustrious, amazing career. It was critical that, I don't know why Dusty wasn't there, by the way. It was critical that Dusty be involved, and it was critical that Ricky Steamboat be involved. I would like to have seen Terry Funk, because that, for me, is Ric Flair in '89, that feud with Funk, when Funk powerbombed Flair through the table after the interview after a Clash of Champions, I believe it was. One of the most heinous things you've ever seen in wrestling at the time, and the program they had after that. That defines Ric Flair to me. But it's not about dwelling on what they could have done, it's what they did do, which was give a classy tribute to a man who deserved it, and a perfect send-off from a lot of people who meant it to a man who deserved it. And I think WWE carried out and executed what they could do very well on Monday night.
I agree. Again, I will admit it was very hard to watch. It was great to watch, but hard to watch from an emotional standpoint also. Well done, bringing out those certain wrestlers, as you mentioned, all the wrestlers at the end coming out, and the exclusive footage that is now on PWR's show right now as you're watching us. There's not much more to be said. Ric Flair is and will always be, arguably and debatably, the greatest professional wrestler of all time.
And with that being said, we are clearly out of time here in this week's edition of the Pro Wrestling Report. Folks, PWR Interactive Live returns Monday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 Central. Hopefully that'll give our fans, including those that we met from Ireland and from the United Kingdom, and from Minneapolis, and from all over this great country, PWR fans that we met at WrestleMania, we thank you for your support and your viewership. We are truly global, and we appreciate that opportunity that you give us to be a part of your wrestling lives. But PWR Interactive, live Monday, 7:30 p.m. You can call in and participate, folks. There's a chat room, there's phone calls, and hopefully the time change will allow our fans across the world to be able to participate a little better. We'll have more on PWR Interactive in the coming weeks as well, but Meathead and myself, along with Frank, if he can get out of the office in time. Frank is the hardest working man at PWR. If Frank can get out of the office in time, we will be presenting that show to you again live on Monday night, 7:30 p.m., only at pwrshow.com. So, with that in mind, for the man they call Meathead and Frank Cosentino, this has been the WrestleMania 24 festivities wrap-up review from the Pro Wrestling Report, and we encourage you to join us Monday night for PWR Interactive, and then again next week for another edition of PWR News. Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk to you soon.